This is the USS Gerald Ford, the American Navy's most advanced aircraft carrier. It can hold some 5,000 soldiers. It can hold a deck of warplanes. It has cruisers. It has destroyers. And right now it is sailing to the eastern Mediterranean. Do you know why? As a show of support to Israel. When Hamas attacked Israel on Saturday, the United States jumped into action. It condemned the attack and it offered its quote-unquote rock solid and unwavering support.
The people of Israel are under attack, orchestrated by a terrorist organization, Hamas. In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back.
The U.S. will always have Israel's back. That was President Joe Biden's promise. And hours later, Washington delivered. It ordered its aircraft carrier to move to the region. The fleet was already in the Mediterranean, so it did not have to go very far. The U.S. is also sending fighter jets as a show of force, a show of support. That's a lot of posturing. And it reflects America's fears. It is worried about this war spreading into the region. It is worried about a bigger conflict in West Asia. That said, Israel is also America's biggest ally in the region. There may be political tensions between the two leaders, Netanyahu and Biden. Biden may not be happy with Benjamin Netanyahu and how he's conducting his affairs, or his extreme far-right government, as it's called. He may not have invited him to the White House in December, but that has never stopped U.S. aid to Israel. Washington gives $3.8 billion of military aid to Israel every year. And with this war, it's likely to increase. Biden has already promised military assistance to Israel. And what this aid would look like is still being worked out. But of course, it won't be U.S. boots on the ground just yet. There will be a lot of military machinery like air defense and munitions. The Pentagon has already fast-tracked whatever is in the pipeline. So clearly, Washington is gearing up to back Israel. But right now, there is no other option for the U.S. Their support for Israel is expected. It's a given. The bigger question is, what happens if this war drags on? What will the U.S. do then? Because remember, Washington is already providing aid to Ukraine. And that war is not ending anytime soon. The one between Ukraine and Russia. Now, with Israel, it will have to meet the needs of two countries simultaneously. Although the Israeli army is already much better equipped than Ukraine was when the war began. But there is going to be a need for support if the war drags on. Plus, what happens to the death if the death toll mounts? What if Israel launches a ground offensive into Gaza? Thousands of Palestinians could die. There could be a humanitarian disaster. There could be potential for refugees. There could be domestic backlash. All of this will determine how the U.S. navigates this. And remember, this is an election year for them. And while Joe Biden's initial deployment was about strategic deterrence, his incentive could also be political. Like I said, America is going to elections next year, and Biden wants to make sure that the Republicans do not exploit this crisis in West Asia. In fact, they're already calling out Biden on the $6 billion Iranian funds that were released. $6 billion in Iranian funds were released earlier this year. So it is likely that they will use this as a lightning rod. The Republicans will use it against the Democrats. Plus, Biden was hoping to preside over a relative lull in West Asia. His own national security advisor talked about it. His name is Jack Sullivan. Not very long ago, he said, it's the most peaceful West Asia has been in 20 years. That was just a week later. And then Hamas attacks Israel. Also, there's the elusive Saudi-Israel peace deal. If Saudi Arabia normalized ties with Israel, it would change West Asia. And Biden was hoping to be the president who brokers this deal. But right now, it looks unlikely. The deal looks like a long shot. There's no way Riyadh would normalize ties with Israel in the middle of a war. So will it be a dead end soon? Listen to what the U.S. Secretary of State has said.
No surprise that those opposed to the efforts to normalize relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and more broadly, to normalize Israel's relations with countries throughout the region and beyond, who opposes it? Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran. So to the extent that this was designed to try to derail the efforts that were being made, that speaks volumes. Right now, the focus is on dealing with this attack, dealing with Hamas, and we'll come to the normalization efforts, which...
So the peace deal is on the back burner right now. The Biden administration has two main priorities: aid for Israel and prevent the conflict from spreading further. But beyond that, they have no good options. And the diplomatic option could be complicated by how Israel fights this war in the days ahead.